I'm John Skinner, and this supports Chapter 19 in my book Striper Pursuit, and you can learn more about the book at striperpursuit.com. So this is a fun video. I intended to get some fluke action and ended up getting quite a few stripers and some squid as well, so there's lots to see here. And there's your typical aggressive fluke strike. That's about a 7-inch bait strip on a floating jig head, and you saw it just smashed it one shot. So the jig head is actually a fluke candy teaser from Jigging World. They're located in New Jersey. But what I've done is I've put a hook protector on it so that the fish can't get stuck. And I did that because I'm also, while I'm doing this video, I'm up in the boat and I'm bucktailing fluke, and I'm quite confident that I'll get my 5-fish limit. So I'd like to be able to just keep this camera rig, and there's the bucktail actually dancing, and the fluke wants to get at it. The sea robin's got it. There's a lot going on here. So I decided to, rig this up so that the fluke couldn't get hooked. This way here, I could keep the camera down. They would hit the bait strip, but not get stuck on it. Now, I don't normally fish bait strips. I'm doing this purely to get the video. I fish bucktails and gulp almost exclusively, but you can't bounce the camera and get good video, but you can drift a bait strip like this, and with some effort and a few tweaks, you can get nice video like this. On my YouTube channel are many videos of bucktailing for fluke, both from shore, boat, kayak, along with rigging instructions and everything else. Fluke are called flounder in many parts of the country. It's very much worth noting the aggressiveness of the hits and how they take that big bait strip in one shot. When I bucktail for fluke, I always suggest as soon as you feel weight on the end of the rod, set the hook, because most of the time they've got it in their mouth just like that. And if they don't, what I've seen over and over on video is if you pull it away from them, they go right back after it. So there really should be no fear of missing the fish on a hook set, because if you miss them, they're going to come back. So here's a real treat. We're going to get to watch some stripers, and I rarely get any of these at all on video. So clearly they're showing very little interest in that fresh strip of fluke. And they're not hitting the bucktail either, but I'm not surprised by that, because the rapid vertical jigging that I do for fluke produces very, very few bass. Even though I'm frequently in areas where I expect there are some stripers, they just don't like that rapid jigging technique that I use on the fluke. Now, if I was casting for stripers with bucktails, I would use a slow to moderate retrieve and just glide it along, and it's been very effective. But up in the boat, I had absolutely no indication of stripers. I didn't hook any. So this is Long Island Sound, late May, in about 20 feet of water, but actually just several long casts from the shoreline. I'm in relatively close. This video was shot with a Waterwolf camera, and one of the places that carries those is J&H Tackle, Oakdale, Long Island, both in the store and online. So anglers up north know what these things are. These are sea robins. They're the big interference fish that fluke anglers have to deal with, and they're quite aggressive. And I've got a couple of them coming after me here, so the fluke are going to have to work hard to get at the baits. What you saw very quickly there was a fluke grabbing the bucktail and getting caught, and he went up. You gotta love the way that fluke snuck in between the sea robins and managed to grab that. So this is another treat. I don't normally get to see squid on the video, and we're going to see a bunch. I've lost the bait strip. I had a fish grab on, pull it off, which is unusual. But so there's just a floating jig head for the fish to look at for the squid and bass and so forth. You see the squid giving it a quick look. There's squid chasing the bucktail rig. That thing above the bucktail is a 3-inch gulp shrimp, and that has been around the time of this trip. That's really caught the bulk of the fish. Very effective. So unfortunately I snagged it with the bucktail rig. I'm trying to get the bucktail into the video frame, and when that fish went to the side I ended up hooking the line. So I'm fishing in relatively close to shore because at this time of the year, early in the season, the fluke really haven't set up well on the sand shoals where they normally are in Long Island Sound. Typically we do well a mile to a mile and a half off the beach. And those fish are typically feeding on schools of sand eels, and it's just not set up well out there yet. And at this time of year, a lot of times the better fluke are in pretty close to shore, and they're feeding on crabs, small porgies. In fact, during this trip, the fish I was catching on the bucktail rig were spitting up small porgies and squid and so forth. And this is the kind of stuff that you find in close to the beach on the structure. And so that's why I'm in close. It's probably why you're seeing as many bass as we've seen on this video. Is the bass are in the structure also. And by structure I mean rocks and bottom clutter and so forth. And actually, while taking the underwater video, I can't get into the best of the structure because I have to worry about hanging the camera up and losing it. So in the lower corner of the frame there, you can see a fluke working on the bucktail rig, and the top teaser there is a tsunami glass minnow teaser tipped with a 4-inch gulp alive, and that's what got that fish. The bucktail is a 1-ounce S&S. It's similar to a spro bucktail, and I also use the spros in here as well. Out of all the underwater video I've watched, and I've watched a lot of it, this is, I don't want to say it's the only time, but it could be the only time I've seen the fish just grab onto the back end of the tail. You almost never see that. Typically the hits are one shot, the whole thing is gone, but that one particular one, for whatever reason, just grabbed onto the tail. I don't know if it's the same fish, but it's a little bit different. That fish going after the bucktail and it now working its way up to the gulp shrimp is not a fluke. That is what's typically called in this area a sundial or a window pane flounder. It's smaller, very thin. So I'm going to dangle this bait above the water. I think it's still touching the water there, but I'm going to pull it out of the water completely and hold it up in the air. That's what I'm doing. It's now held up in the air, but the sea robin is looking up and still wanting to get at it, even though I'm holding it, I don't know, it's about 5 inches off the top of the water, wiggling it back and forth, and the sea robin came all the way up from 20 feet and right next to the boat and still looking at that strip of bait. And I'll leave you with this little blunder. One of the issues with going in where there's structure is that there's often fish traps and things like that. And I was busy working with a fish on the bucktail rod, and I wasn't even that close to a trap buoy, but a lot of times these things are strung together. So now I've managed to hang my camera up on a rope, and I'm going to try hard here not to have this become the second camera that I've lost or wrecked. Trying to get underwater video. There's lots of strange sounds underwater, and the camera picks them up pretty well. So I never touched the rope. I just mowed it up, changed the angle on the line, managed to get free. And there's a nice fluke there that I got on the bucktail rod that had me kind of distracted, caused me to get hung up. If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to my channel.